All right, so moving on then in the story of my life to the next chapter here. A little bit of rewind is required for this. We had both lost our jobs. I had lost my job at the Joseph Campbell Foundation, and she had lost her construction work job for her father. That wasn't working out. And so what happened was that we both got a job, hired together to work at a bookstore. A bookstore was opening up in Ahwatukee, which is an area kind of in South Tempe, where her parents lived. And there was a bookstore, Half Price Books, actually, was opening up a brand new store there. And they were looking to hire a whole bunch of people all at once, and so they hired both of us. And it was great. We worked very well together, side by side, very compatible working energies. And she was making everyone laugh, and it was great fun, the two of us working together at the bookstore. But at the same time, I was working on finishing my first book, and I had finished it and then got it submitted to a publisher in San Francisco, a small press that had been bought out by a zillionaire guy, the same guy who owns Sky Vodka, also bought the press. So he had some money. And so the book came out in 1999, and because that press had some money, they were able to pay for us to go on a book tour. So we went up and down the West Coast. We went to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland, and I gave book readings in all of these cities. And it was a huge success. I had lots of talk show interviews. I was on NPR on Science Friday talking about all this stuff. And then when we went to San Francisco, we went to Berkeley, and as soon as we entered Berkeley, I fell in love with the place. I was like, we're going to live in Berkeley someday. This place is awesome. So I filed that away in the back of my mind. And then so we went back to our jobs at the bookstore in Ahwatukee. And then she got us fired after a while because she got into a dispute with the manager. They got into a shouting match, and I, of course, had to take her side. So we both walked. And so we were out of a job. So both of us needed work. And I managed to find a job as an assistant manager at Barnes & Noble. So once again, I was wearing the straight-laced shirt with a tie, going to a 9-to-5 job, and I absolutely hated it. And they could tell I hated it. I didn't click with anyone there at this corporate, crappy world with all these people who didn't have any interest in books and had no business being hired at a bookstore anyway. I just hated it. But I worked out for a few months. Now, meanwhile, she had started doing phone sex. So she started doing phone sex, and she didn't do it very long, only for like a month. And I'd walk by with my coffee. I'd be working on my writing, and I'd walk by and hear her faking orgasms in the room for these guys. And she wasn't making very much money. It was like minimum wage, really. It was kind of a waste of time. So she quit that job after a bit. But then when she was looking in the pages of a publication, a local publication out there called New Times, there was an ad in the back for a telephone operator for an escort agency. So this escort agency was located somewhere in Scottsdale, and she went to go get the job, and they hired her on the spot. And so she started arranging assignations. She was the telephone operator, fielding calls from men coming in requesting prostitutes, and then she would tell the men where to go, which hotel to go to meet which prostitute. And she really liked the job, and she was making good money. She was bringing in like $500 a night off of just doing this. She didn't have to have any contact with the sex world at all, just fielding men going to hotels. And so, but this particular agency, and I would go pick her up, and so I would go in and see all the prostitutes sitting around. This particular agency was mafia run, and she was telling me about how the boss was behind his desk, and he had a shotgun against the wall back behind him, and she was like, "What's the shotgun for?" And he's like, "Well, sometimes we get visits." Whatever that means. And when she told me that, I got really nervous, and I was like, "Oh shit, what the fuck is this going to be like?" And I was really nervous. But fortunately, what happened was that she got into a fight with one of the prostitutes who took a disliking to her, and they got into a fight, and she only had the job for like a month, something like that, and they fired her. And I was like, whew, I was relieved, because it was obviously mafia run. The sound of the shotgun did not sound like a good omen to me. But then she's like, no, I'm getting another one. She was addicted to it because it was easy money. And she's like, no, I'm getting another one. I'm like, oh, come on. Can't you find something else? There's got to be something else you can do. She's like, no, I'm doing this. So she went out and found another escort service looking for a telephone operator, liaison woman. And in this case, it wasn't mafia run. This time she found an agency that was run by a wealthy, affluent African-American couple, very shady, shadowy people. I met both of them. We went out and had dinner with them a few times. And their office was located off of Thomas Road, just off of Thomas Road and Scottsdale Road. And so she did this for like the next 6 months. This agent, she clicked with the owners. She clicked with all the prostitutes. Everything was going good. And she was pulling in $500 a night, $500 a night. And meanwhile, I hated my job working for Barnes & Noble. And so one night she came to pick me up on my lunch hour. And I was like, this place fucking sucks. And she's like, well, quit it. I'll be the breadwinner for now. I'm making a lot of money. You don't need to do this shit. Don't worry about it. Quit it. Let's just leave. So we drove off. And she's like, just concentrate on your writing for now. And I did. So I worked on my writing, and I was writing essays. I knew I wanted to write my second book about film. And so I started writing essays. I wrote an early draft of an essay about the movie Alien that I didn't think was any good. Then I wrote an essay about James Cameron's Titanic. I didn't like that one either. So I had to keep scrapping them and rewriting them and scrapping them. And this book took forever to write because I was teaching myself how to write. And it was an agonizing process of writing and then rewriting, writing and then rewriting constantly. And the book didn't come out until 2005. And all the chapters in that book, it reads smoothly now, but it took me forever to figure out how to get it to read right. Meanwhile then, just before I had quit that Barnes & Noble job, this was like rewinding back a bit. This was like a month before it. She calls me at the job one day and she's got like, all right, I know you're curious. I know you want to do this, and it's only going to happen once. I'm going to let you sleep with one of these women. I'm going to pick her out for you, and we're going to get this over with. It's going to happen once, and you're never going to bother me about it again. I was like, sounds good. So she picked out a prostitute, and then she calls me on my lunch hour at Barnes & Noble, and she tells me it's going to cost you $350, so make sure you have that with you. And I was like, fine, let's do this then. I was curious. So she routed me, like one of the men, over to the hotel. And I went to the hotel, and indeed the woman that she picked was gorgeous, really beautiful prostitute. So I went in, and the first thing you have to do is strip down naked. So I stripped down naked because they have to make sure you're not wearing a wire or you're a cop or something like that. And then I told her what I wanted. You have to be very direct and blunt about it. Put the money on the table, told her exactly what I wanted. She gave me exactly what I wanted. We finished up, and then I left. And that was it. Now, for probably the next day or so, it wasn't long, she was in a bad mood about it. She was moody and withdrawn. Usually she's not an introvert. She's a total extrovert, but she was all withdrawn and sulky and brooding for about 24 hours, and then she snapped out of it, and that was it. And that was the only time I ever cheated on her, which technically wasn't cheating because she authorized and arranged the whole thing over the course of our 15-year relationship. That was the only episode. So that was done and out of the way. So meanwhile, she went back to work, and I went back to working on my books, and she went back to work. Now, she had started making friends with one of the prostitutes who was addicted to cocaine. She was a cocaine addict. She would go in. She was one of the more sophisticated prostitutes. She would go in, load up on cocaine, have sex with the men, but the two of them, my ex and this woman, were hooking up. They were becoming really good friends. And now what they were doing was they were starting to do gigs on the side, off the books of the agency, doing their own thing, putting in ads for their own agency, as though they had their own agency, men showing up and then pocketing all the money. So there was a lot more money than coming in with the two of them doing this. I was really nervous because I was telling her, if they find out that you're doing gigs on the side, We could be in some big trouble here. We don't know what these people are capable of. We don't know what they're going to do. But it was like Goodfellas or Breaking Bad. You know, we were just addicted to the rush of making all this money, easy money, breaking the law, but making easy money. And it was a rush, I have to admit. It was very, very addictive. And so then we were like, well, the situation was getting kind of hairy. And I was like, we should go out. We should just take the money and run. Let's get out of here and go to San Francisco. We loved Berkeley. Let's go live there. And she had lived in San Francisco earlier for about a year while she was going to college, and she loved the place. So she wanted to go too, and I wanted to go, and she was making a lot of money. And pretty soon, we saved up about 10 grand or something like that. So we decided it's time to go. It's now or never. Phoenix was a dead scene. Nothing was happening there. I was still working on my second book. It was just time to get out of there. And so it's a good thing we did. So we packed up everything into a U-Haul. And our last night in that house in Mesa, the whole place was empty. We slept on mattresses on the floor, but we couldn't sleep. We didn't sleep, and dawn rolled around, or just about an hour before dawn. It was still dark. We're like, let's get the fuck out of here. So we went into the U-Haul, and we got on the freeway, and we started driving. But we had a lot of furniture and a lot of boxes full of heavy books, my books, and books weigh a ton. And so we had loaded them in there, and as I was driving on the freeway, the truck was wobbling back and forth. It just wasn't handling right. And I was realizing the U-Haul is too small. We're going to have to go back to U-Haul and get a bigger truck. She's like, oh, fuck. And this is all done on no sleep, by the way. So we went back to U-Haul. We drove back. We had to backtrack about 30 minutes to get back to the U-Haul. Asked for a bigger truck. We got a bigger truck, and we loaded everything up into the larger U-Haul. We got back on the freeway, and it handled fine. And we're like, okay, everything's good. So then that day, we stopped in Blythe. Blythe is like the first town of the border into California. So we got there. We stopped there at around noon. We were exhausted. We slept there. Got up early the next morning and continued the drive, and wound up in San Francisco by late afternoon of that day. And we had a couple of friends there, a lesbian couple, one of whom had been the publicist for my book, for my first book, and we had formed kind of a bond with her, a friendship. And they allowed us, the lesbian couple allowed us to stay with them for a few days while we were finding a place. And it only took 3 or 4 days, and we found a place on Telegraph and Alcatraz, right on that intersection, which is right on the border of Oakland and Berkeley. Beautiful view down the street. You can see the ocean and Alcatraz Island. And Berkeley was just amazing. At the time, I was reading Rudolf Steiner, and I was preparing to deliver a lecture on Rudolf Steiner to the Astrological Institute in Scottsdale. So that entire first year that I arrived there, I was doing nothing but reading Rudolf Steiner, Rudolf Steiner, Rudolf Steiner. We both got jobs right away. She got a job working for the publicist that our lesbian friend had hired to do the publicity work for my first book. He hired her as an aide, and then I got a job working for a bookstore in Berkeley. So we both got jobs immediately. It felt very good being in San Francisco. Everything felt right. Then after a while, they were so impressed with me at the bookstore that they turned over to me. They were getting ready to open their first big bookstore in San Francisco, and they wanted me to run it. So they offered me this management position to have complete control over this bookstore across the water in North Beach in San Francisco, and a huge pay raise at that point. And I was like, great. So I took the job, and for the next 5 years, I ran a bookstore in North Beach, and it was amazing. It was a dream job. It was absolutely great. I had complete control. I could hire and fire anyone I wanted. I had complete control of the store. Movie stars and celebrities and directors were coming in and out. I got to meet Francis Ford Coppola and the director Philip Kaufman. Tom Waits was a regular. Sean Penn would come in. It was great. So San Francisco was really working very well. And then her job with the publicist didn't work out, so she got another sex industry job working for a website that advertises for Escort services. So she got that job, another sex industry job, and she was working there and doing very well. And both of our jobs were going along just great. And then there was a couple who lived upstairs from us at Telegraph and Alcatraz, a literary couple, the one guy training to become a psychoanalyst, The woman was an English major, reading all these novels. And they became sort of our friends, our couple friends. Couples tend to have other couples as friends. And we would go out and do things and have fun. And then at some point, along about 2003, started to roll around. And we started to realize I was making good money, and she was making money. Everything was good, stable. We'd been together for 7 years at that point, another Saturn cycle note. And we decided to have a kid. She called me on the phone. She's like, I want to have a kid now. I think it's time. I was scared. I was 35 years old. She was 31. So it was a kind of a now or never thing. But I was scared to have a kid because I just didn't want to perpetuate that cycle of childhood abuse that I'd been through. But I agreed it was either now or never. And I was afraid not to have a kid. I was afraid I would regret it for the rest of my life if we didn't. And though she and this woman, friend of ours with the couple, kind of then got into a jealousy rivalry match about who could get pregnant first. She was wanting to get pregnant with her husband too. We had married, I think in 2002, like a year before. So we'd been together 7 years. We got married in Berkeley. We had my mom out with her husband, the dud guy, who had been married to my maternal grandmother. They came out, my brother, and we had a little wedding chapel in a Victorian chapel in Berkeley. Everything was really nice and sweet. Then we decided to have the kid. And so we got pregnant first, needless to say. We got pregnant first, and then the kid came. And this was 2003. I was really scared, but I remember the day that her water broke. She'd been pregnant, and then she went out to the garage to take the trash out. And she's like, uh-oh, hey, a bunch of water just came out of me. I was like, your water broke, we got to go. So I loaded her up into the car. We drove down to the hospital in Berkeley. All of this was terrifying. But I had to just like shut my brain off and pretend it wasn't happening to get through it. So we got to the hospital, and the hospital goes in, sets everything up, and I'm there with her the whole time. She was in labor for 14 hours. I mean, this went on forever. We arrived there at like 11 o'clock that night, and the kid wasn't born until like 7 p.m. the next night. But at first, they asked her if she wanted a painkiller, a spinal tap, fentanyl, which is introduced through the spine. She's like, fuck yeah, this hurts like hell. So she got a spinal tap, and I remember sitting there watching the baby's heart monitor. And the moment they injected her with that fentanyl, the baby's heartbeat went, it crashed immediately. It did not like that drug. All these nurses are coming in. There's this flurry of activity and desperation, everybody worried. And then everything stabilized. The baby's heartbeat stabilized, went back up, and it was okay. But I'll never forget that. And I think it may have played a role in what subsequently happened with my son. So we already knew we were having a son. We'd already found that out and given him the name and so forth. And so labor went on forever. And then I'm standing there. I was trying to film some of it with a video camera, but I was like, this is really a shitty thing to do while my kid's coming out of my wife's vagina. I don't want to fucking film this shit. It's like taboo. There's certain things, certain areas technology should not invade. So I set the camera aside. She's got her legs spread. Everybody's working on her vagina, and the kid's crowning. His head is slowly coming out. It's taking forever. She's in agony. She's screaming and pushing. They're like, keep pushing. Push, push. And she's pushing the baby's head. It was just too big, really, to get through the birth canal. And at a certain point, we were worried because we were afraid they were going to have to use forceps to pull the head out. And if they do that, there's a risk of brain damage. They could damage the cranial thing, the skull. And but she gave one last heroic push, and then out slid my son. Came out. They cut the cord. This was, by the way, the most surreal moment of my entire life. I was like, this isn't like really happening, is it? And they carried the kid over to the station and washed him up, cleaned him off. And he was all crying. And then they let us spend the night. We went back into the back room, and we collapsed, all three of us exhausted from the ordeal. And then I remember I was sleeping, and I remember getting up in the middle of the night and seeing the kid and leaning over him. And I distinctly recall a feeling of something in me just clicking right away. It was an instant bond that I formed with my son. It was immediate. I felt it. It was like an audible click. like something had made a sound. And I knew we were bonded for life at that point, no matter what else would happen. I knew that it was like a mystical thing. So they let us go home, and we brought the kid home, and he wasn't a colicky kid at all. But that first night when we brought him home, all he did was cry all night long. No matter what we did, change his diaper, feed him, rock him, no matter what we did, he just kept crying the whole night long. But that was the only night like that. After that, we set into a rhythm, and we did a little bit of role reversal here. I changed the diapers every single time. She never once changed his diaper. I got up in the middle of the night every single night when he was crying and rocked him back to sleep and put him down. She couldn't do this shit. For some reason, the bond that she had with him never quite clicked the way that it did with me. And this became an element in our divorce, this jealousy here over the bond that I formed with my kid and that she could not form. And she was frustrated because she would try to go and rock him to sleep in the middle of the night. She'd pick him up, and it wouldn't work. He'd just keep crying. But when I did it, picked him up and rocked him, pretty soon he fell asleep. I put him back. So I had the magic touch. She did not. So I think we'll leave this video right here with what's happening with the kid, and we'll resume with the rest of it next time.